Welcome to week 2 of Newswriting. This week we will move from what defines news to writing about people who are newsworthy. I like to think that everybody has a story to tell, and I think when you've been reading each other's profiles on discussion board, you've probably found that every one of your classmates would make an interesting story. This week we will focus on interviewing skills and who you need to talk to and what makes a good source. So when you're writing a profile about someone, in addition to talking to them, you should consider talking to the people who know them best. A large part of writing a news story involves research. You want to go into your interviews and into your stories as prepared as possible, and so it helps to do your homework. In addition, each week I would like to continue our discussion on the Associated Press. One important part of news style is how you refer to someone. This week, I would like to remind you that the correct way to refer to someone when you are writing about them is to use their full name, first and last name on the first reference. So when you introduce someone, you should use their full name. An example might be, Natasha Kaselke is teaching news writing and reporting for Madison College this semester. After that, when you mention that person, you should make sure you refer to them by their last name only. There are exceptions, of course. For example, if you're writing about a family where everyone has the last name, the only way to distinguish between people may be to use their first names. Also, when writing about children, we do tend to use their first names. In addition to profiles, this week we'll take a look at writing obituaries. These are stories that are very well read and often lead to news stories. When you read obituaries, you might want to be paying attention to significant accomplishments people have had in their lives. They often lead to feature stories or mini profiles which have come from a lead found in an obituary. When I worked on the city desk, one of my jobs was to read through the obituaries and run the names of the deceased through something we call the morgue. In news writing, the morgue means to look at past stories that have been done. So perhaps you're running it through a Google search or a search of stories that have been done on people before. Another useful tool when writing profiles is to make sure you check that person out on places such as Wisconsin Circuit Court access. Someone may appear to be a wonderful person, and you may be writing a story about a wonderful accomplishment. However, in doing a background check, you may also find they have a lengthy criminal record. That may change your mind about how you're going to proceed with the story, including whether you're going to run it at all. Oftentimes, obituaries will not include negative information about someone, and so that's why it's important to always run your story ideas and people's names through the morgue. When you're writing a profile, think about what might make an interesting focus on that person. You really don't want to be writing their whole life's retrospective. It would be better to focus on an element of that person that is newsworthy. So perhaps they have an interesting occupation, maybe they've won an award, maybe they've saved someone's life. But instead of writing about their lives from birth until present, it might be of value to find a particular focus. Some people will not be comfortable giving some information about themselves, for example, ages. It's up to you as a reporter to decide how important that information is to your story, and will the reader have questions. This week, I will also be posting a press release. From this press release, I would like you to write your first news brief. Going back to week 1, I'd like to remind you, when you're reading the press release, the first thing to ask yourself is, why does the reader care? What is newsworthy about the story? And that should help direct your focus. After that, remember to ask yourself the important questions in writing the lead. Who, what, when, where, and why. After that, you should move into the nut graph and add information that tells your reader where you're going with the story. And most importantly, make sure you give credit to your sources. Tell the reader where you got the information. If you got it from a public information officer or a spokesperson, make that clear. If you actually interviewed the person, make that clear. So have fun with week 2, and I hope you'll find some interesting people out there to profile.